Hello and welcome to the show. It is not at the top of the mountain for today. I saw this mod on the BeamNG forums and I just had to use it. This is the Adelaide GP circuit, or Calypso 500 as I know it, from V8 Supercars. Yeah, it is the full track that I just had to use. So if people would like this idea of me taking cars around a proper racetrack on Beam rather than just sort of throwing them down a mountain, I may well sort of alternate this series with the Downhill Chaos one, as this poses some very different challenges. This is a pretty damn fast circuit around here, and most of the stuff I've done on Beam revolves around fairly low speed stuff, so you're really testing the cars in some different ways, and in ways that, I'll be honest, Beam does struggle a little bit with dealing with the higher speed car. A lot of them get quite twitchy. On the first run with my Capri, it turns out the manhole covers kind of like to eat wheels. At least with this car. Other cars is okay with, as the wheel going somewhere off down the road. But with this car, you touch the manhole cover and it rips something off. In this case, a wheel that was still spinning around in a circle in the background. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I mean, if I drive over it at low speed, it's fine. I don't know what it is. I think the collision detection can occasionally be a little bit strange with the Capri, but in this case, manhole cover and Capri do not mix. Another thing that I had to get used to, shall we say, brakes not quite as good on this game as I was expecting it. Yeah, just going into the braking zone, put the brakes on, in fact, relatively early on that one, and it just didn't stop. And then we have you don't really want to be going on the curbs. It gets a bit twitchy and a bit oversteery, and whoop, we will eventually get it just about back into a straight line. But yeah, only just. First corner here is pretty damn scary, very quick through the opening section, or I should say very quick for Beam. It's the speedo, it's yeah, it's showing it as not very quick, considering this is what, a Group 5 or DRM racing car. But it's pretty damn fast for BeamNG levels of speed. Makes it quite difficult to drive. But this Capri was not too bad. Had to be careful on the power. It did like to do that when you're in the second gear and put your foot down. It will just spin the wheels up, especially if you brush a curb. I then tried to put the brakes on, and that didn't stop it in time. So it was into the wall with the Ford. It was still going. I managed to back it out of the wall, but yeah, it broke it quite significantly on the front as the camera goes through the floor. Yeah, tricky to drive in many ways around this course. Again, fairly early on, making sure to avoid the manhole cover of doom. May have understeered a little bit, not quite got that caught. The problem is the manhole cover's right where I want to be to take a nice racing line through there. So you take a shallow line, and if you try and take too much speed, you do that and you bump the wall, and that snapped the steering. That was me not on the steering there. That was how much damage I'd done to the steering. Coming into the first corner, getting bounced over the curves massively. Not going to save that one. Not very much you can do about that. If you hit the curbs a little bit awkwardly with this car, you just get thrown around and you can't save it. After a little while, I got a clean up. I'm choosing to go with a standing start on this one, just for continuity's sake between all of the vehicles. It's an easy place to have the car spawn. Yeah, got through the first section okay that time. It can be done flat out. It's very scary doing it flat out. Got to brake earlier than you think for this next corner. It feels like quite a wide street circuit to me in some places. Yeah, it's not completely terrifyingly claustrophobic. It doesn't feel like that for most of it. Occasionally it gets a little bit narrower through here, and you've got to be very careful with the curbs in this car. Incredibly careful with them. As you saw before, if you put a wheel over there while you're putting power down and you get it just a little bit wrong, then the car will go round in a circle, or it'll twitch on you or go into a wall. This next corner, very, very fast corner that's coming up. Well, I say very fast. 200 kilometers an hour is not particularly fast, and I feel like the cars in here are reading slower than they should. In reality, this will do a hell of a lot more than that speed. in real life, but that's the speed that you get to. For this game, it's blooming fast getting around there. But the Capri has plenty of high-speed grip. It was very, very solid through there. The only real handling quirk of it, if you like, is trying to put the power down out of these second gear corners. It just gets this snap of wheel spin that it's a little bit unexpected at times. Overall, this is a pretty damn good car to drive. We do get a little bit of understeer here and there, as you see smoke billowing off the front wheels. But on the most part, pretty consistent. Pretty nice to drive as we come around the final corner, and then it is just a run to the finish line for the Ford. Good car to drive, this one. It was pretty damn good at the high-speed stuff. Occasionally got caught out by the curbs, but that's to be expected, really, on this game. This game does not deal with this sort of speeds quite as well yet. And then as we do celebratory donuts, the front of the car is shaking and wobbling all over the place. Good car to drive, though. This one, great fun around here. So I thought, you know, we'll go with the proper race car first to kind of set a target time, and then we'll go to some various other vehicles. Up next, we've got the game's standard supercar in purple. For why not? In the latest update, there is a selector for colours, so I picked a random colour I haven't used before, and I made the supercar purple. I was interested to see how this one would fare compared to the race car that we sent around first. I have absolutely no idea how they would compare on a track like this, very different to everything else I've really driven. This is not the easiest of cars to drive. When it comes to high speed, that's through turn 1. That's not a good line. You don't want to be taking that sort of line through turn 1. This is a really weird car to drive at high speed. It becomes very twitchy, very slidey, and not very controllable, as we can see going through that fast corner on the back straight. I couldn't hold it. I was being brave and was trying to keep it together flat out, and it didn't work. I got understeer, but even before we even got to the corner, you see how much the car is sort of moving from side to side. It is really hard to keep this car in a straight line at high speeds, or high-ish speed, as high a speed as we really get here. It's so difficult to drive. Before we even get into the corner, we've got problems, having a big twitch going on. I'm going in at, what was that, 190 kilometers an hour, approaching to that corner, and I end up going left into a right-hander. That's never good. There's never a good sign. Car actually got away without too much damage on that time. Managed to sort of slow it down before I inevitably bumped into the wall. Again, braking into the hairpin. It was proving slightly tricky. May have gone a little bit wide again. Got to be a bit careful with the curbs. I also think there's a bit of a bump on this sort of white line that I'm driving across there on part of that hairpin. You just got to watch out for that. I get caught out by a combination of not stopping in time and understeer into the next corner, and we go slightly across the grass. Don't manage to bang the car into anything, but lost a whole heap of time into turn 1. Get away with it, get some really big bounces going on through the first bit, but the next corner, again, just a little bit of understeer combined with a slight bump in the track. All it takes to unsettle this car and throw it in a wall. You really do kind of drive on a very fine line with this. It's an incredibly fine line with this car between going quick and smacking it heavily into a wall somewhere. And that's okay, you could say that about all racing, but with this, it's such a hard car to drive. It's such, yeah, it's very, sort of the rear end is very slidey. In some respects, it's not massively responsive, but it can be very twitchy. It's weird driving cars on here at high speeds. It really is, or the sort of speeds that you would use on a track like this. Through these kind of sort of slower speed corners, it was actually pretty damn good. I didn't have the same problem with the power delivery that I had with the Capri. This was much easier to drive through the low speed corners in the acceleration zone. Didn't have a problem with the manhole cover either. We could drive over that absolutely fine without any issues. I could attack the curbs without too much fear. I had to be a little bit careful, but yeah, it's this bit here is where things got really scary. If I got round the first corner, the next bits were fine. Down here, just keep the damn car in a straight line was so difficult. A little bit quicker top speed than the Capri. Couldn't take it flat out around here. Had to have a slight dab on the brakes, and even then it's very twitchy on the exit. and then slam on the brakes. Again, still braking much earlier than I think I need to, but the brakes are probably equal to the Capri. I'm still not used to having... it feels like they're rubbish brakes. It's just something I've got to get used to with with this game. Again, brake early for this next corner. Make sure we can get turned around it. Don't put a wheel on the curb, not really necessary. Then, yeah, again, you can see it down here. It's just the back end slides around at the high speeds, makes it very, very difficult to drive. Up towards the final corner now. Again, quite hard to judge this final corner. Also quite bumpy, mid corner. It's hard to judge a braking zone for there. There's no real sort of landmarks, no real guides on where to brake for that one. And there we go. The car is across the line. It's blooming... it's blooming hard to drive. It's quite crazy, this one. There is just so little rear end grip. Tried to do a donut, didn't really work in this car. Got much longer gear ratios than the Capri. Struggles to get off the line and that sort of thing. Little bit funny with that one. Our third and final vehicle for today is the Covert MRI, the mid-engined rear-wheel drive Covert. Thought I would give this one a go, see how it fared. I was a little bit concerned about this car. This can be quite twitchy on the normal sort of rally stuff that I do, the normal sort of roads I've driven it on. So when we come to something as high speed as this, yeah, I had concerns with this car. As you can see, we are wiggling our way down towards the first corner. We're already having problems. It's already gone. That is the slight downside with this car. It is quite twitchy. And while if you're on a very tight, narrow rally stage, that's good. You've got lots of manoeuvrability. When you're dealing with high-speed corners, it's not good. Again, we're heading right into a left-hander. Just about managed to stay out of the walls, but that's not the optimum racing line to be taking there. You don't want to be doing that. Again, the first corner there is a pretty damn nasty one to be dealing with. Even under braking into the hairpin, I was having some problems. That's also not the correct way to slow a car down. It's very hard to describe to you when you're jumping on the brakes, and I'm trying to keep the car from moving around. It's also now crabbing horribly, and just sort of the like tiny movements I'm trying to use to keep the car under control is enough to cause these really big effects. It's very hard to control under the heavy braking and at the high speeds. This corner again proves to be quite tricky. I kind of slide the car in. Almost trying to slide it through the corner, and then it finds grip, and then it gets understeer. So it stops sliding and understeers straight into a wall. That's less than ideal. The manhole cover was less kind to the cover. Most times I got away with it, but then it did that. Snapped the front. It didn't completely rip the wheel off, but it did plenty of damage to it. Yeah. It's probably wisest to avoid the manhole cover over there, if I'm honest. Turn one again, unsurprisingly. I just lose control coming into the corner. Car gets twitchy, can't stop it in time. And no harm done really to the car, it's fine, but of course a lot of time lost. The other downside to the Covert, it really does struggle off the line. So on the fastest lap, it really struggles to get off the line. Not sure why, but maybe turbo lag or something. It's a pain launching this car. Get through the first corner, okay, just about okay. Still, this is not an easy car to drive at the higher speeds around this track. It doesn't really like it. Again, under braking, how much the car just violently twitches from side to side. Yeah, I was kind of lucky that I was expecting that to go round in a circle. The amount that the back end was moving around there, it's very scary. I'm not sure, perhaps it's locking up the rear brakes first, possibly. Might explain why it is under braking, but doesn't explain why it gets so twitchy at the high speeds. Again, the curbs weren't too bad with this car. I could run over them without too much fear, and again I could put the power down in here relatively well. It was the braking that was a real issue. And again, at high speeds, once you got over 150 kilometers an hour, yeah, that's going from side to side and going in a straight line is really rather tricky. I was fairly scared of this corner. Not quite as bad in the Covert, doesn't have quite as high a top speed. I think the supercar was doing 220. This is doing only 170, so not quite as bad. Into the hairpin, we're all all sorts of funny shapes that a race car shouldn't be in. End up over the curb and take a little bit of grass, but it'll have to do. The amount you fight to get this car stopped in these heavy braking zones. Up towards the final few corners now. Get it right through there this time. Run a tiny bit wide on the exit, get a little bit of wheel spin as I put a wheel on the grass, but nothing too bad. And then it's up towards the final corner, still fighting to keep the car in a straight line, fighting it a little bit there through the right-hander, and then jump on the brakes, try and guess where to stop. Lots of tyre smoke because I get it a tiny bit wrong, and then just a run to the finish line for the Comet. Yeah, pretty tough car to drive, this one. I'll be honest. Incredibly twitchy, and under braking it is genuinely scary. It will keep trying to kill you. But it made it around the track, just about. My nerves just about held together to complete a lap with this, quite frankly, mad Comet. On to the times, and unsurprisingly it is the race car that goes fastest with a 1 of 52.7, quite a lot quicker than the other two. 2-minute 5.8 and a 2-minute 10.3. The Ford is really, of the three cars here, the Ford is the only one that had any high-speed stability. The Ford was really... I didn't realise how lucky I was when I drove the Ford for the first time. Very nice through the high-speed sections. The other two were so twitchy. But it makes for an interesting challenge, trying to get these cars around this track. So, yeah, it was a bit difficult, but they all made it round. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.